Hey guys, tonight we drift into one of those stories that flickers between dream and nightmare. The kind of tale that starts with the warm glow of an oil lamp and then drags you through corridors of shadow where mirrors talk back. You're going to follow a story whispered in the nights of Scheherazade, and trust me, you probably won't survive this one if you take it too seriously, but that's the fun of it, isn't it? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're at it, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing who else is wandering sleepless halls across the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You settle into the lantern glow of Scheherazade's chamber. She sits, the night stretched out before her like a velvet carpet, her voice soft, the air heavy with oud smoke. You can almost smell the resin, thick and sweet, and hear the faint scrape of sand against the palace walls. Her words flow like water from a silver pitcher, pooling in your ears. She begins with a tale of a mirror unlike any other, not the polished bronze mirrors that Greek philosophers once gazed into, debating whether reflection revealed the soul, but a blackened mirror, shard of obsidian, darker than night itself. You lean closer as Scheherazade's voice lowers. This mirror, she says, did not reflect faces but swallowed them whole, pulling light inward like a thirsty desert. Historians still argue whether obsidian mirrors in the ancient world were tools of ritual or just expensive decorations. Some say Aztec priests used them to gaze into realms of gods, though Persia and Mesopotamia had their own black glass relics. And, of course, scholars never quite agree whether stories of Solomon's legendary treasures included such a mirror at all. You picture a king trying to comb his beard in a mirror that refuses to show him anything. Talk about bad grooming luck. But here in Scheherazade's world, the mirror is no mere relic. She frames it as a portal, something that once caught the attention of restless Djinn. You can practically hear the clinking of chains as these spirits press their faces against the glass from the other side. The thought makes your skin prickle, like when you think you see someone in your bathroom mirror at 3 a.m, but no one's there when you flip on the light. Yeah, that moment. Her tale lingers on the chamber itself, reminding you of the audience, King Shahryar, stern and restless, sitting cross-legged with his chin in his hand, pretending not to care while secretly leaning in. The story is her lifeline, her bridge to another sunrise. You picture the flickering shadows from the lamp making the marble walls ripple like water. You imagine her voice threading through the king's exhaustion, binding his mind to the tale. She conjures a merchant tired, half-broke, sand still clinging to his beard. He's trudging through ruined stone arches in a nameless desert, led only by rumour. You see him in your mind, and then, without warning, you realise you're walking beside him. That's how her stories work. You don't just listen, you stumble into them, and once you're in, there's no easy way back out. You pass cracked tiles etched with stars. The wind whistles through broken columns. Somewhere, faint carvings of winged lions loom, half erased by centuries of storms. Real historians will remind you that desert ruins like Palmyra, Petra, or Persepolis often swallowed merchants whole when sandstorms struck. Entire caravans lost beneath dunes, never found again. And yet, the ruins in her story feel different, as if they were built to be forgotten. The merchant kneels among rubble, his hands sifting dust. That's when his fingers catch on something sharp. He pulls it out, a shard no bigger than his palm, black as midnight, smooth as still water. He stares into it, and for a heartbeat, the desert around him flickers. You almost hear a whisper, a voice pressed against glass. Scheherazade lets the silence stretch. You, sitting in the lantern glow, feel the weight of that pause. The mirror does not just reflect, it waits. And already you know, once the merchant has seen it, he'll never walk in sunlight the same way again. She lowers her voice further, drawing you down like a lullaby that just happens to have teeth. It was said, she murmurs, that the mirror came from a palace where the sun had once been chained in the sky, and when that chain broke, the mirror kept a piece of the night locked within. You laugh softly, though nervously. A mirror holding a piece of the night. It's the sort of detail that makes you want to glance at your own reflection right now, just to be sure it hasn't started blinking back. And, really, if a djinn is stuck in your bathroom mirror, maybe at least they could help you fix your bad lighting. Scheherazade smiles faintly at her own story, as if amused by the trick she's pulling, wrapping terror in silk. And Shahryar, though he won't admit it, is caught. And you're already there, drawn into the flickering darkness of the tale, where the mirror waits for its first whisper. The merchant trudges on, the shard of blackened mirror heavy in his palm, though it's no bigger than a coin. You can feel the weight of it too, as if the desert itself leans in to see what he carries. The air tastes of sand and rust. Each step crunches against forgotten tiles, the wind playing games with his ragged turban. You trail beside him, dust clinging to your lashes, wondering if he realizes yet that nothing he owns will matter after today. Scheherazade's voice threads the scene with quiet urgency. She paints the man as ordinary, no prince, no hero, just a weary trader with sore feet and a ledger full of unpaid debts. Maybe that's what makes him dangerous. Ordinary people stumble into extraordinary ruins all the time, and history doesn't always warn them. Think of Heinrich Schliemann bumbling around Troy in the 19th century, digging with more enthusiasm than archaeological sense, yet somehow unearthing legends. Historians still argue whether he discovered Troy or just wrecked it, but the point stands. Sometimes luck, greed, and bad judgment rewrite history. The merchant, luckless as he is, feels the shard's smooth surface pulse faintly, like the beat of a hidden drum. He tucks it inside his cloak and trudges toward the nearest city. You follow, dust rising in ghostly plumes behind him. The desert seems to shift, dunes stretching farther than they should, as though they're reluctant to let him escape. When at last the walls of a market town shimmer ahead, relief washes over him, but something is off. The gates yawn open, though no guards watch them, and the air inside tastes different. Damp, metallic. Too cool for desert night. You step into the city, lanterns burning above narrow streets, but the shadows never shift. You squint, realizing why. The sun hasn't been seen here in years. Scheherazade describes the city of endless night with a cadence that makes your skin prickle. Narrow alleys glimmer with glass lamps filled with oils that never run dry. Stalls overflow with figs, spices, and silks. Yet all of it is lit only by eternal flame. You hear water trickling from hidden aqueducts, a sound both soothing and eerie. The locals shuffle by, eyes rimmed with weariness, their skins pale as if they've forgotten daylight. The merchant whispers to a shopkeeper, asking what place this is. The man shrugs, mutters, and keeps arranging dates on a tray. You get the sense people here know not to ask questions. Historians still argue whether ancient cities like Hatra or Haran had cults that worshipped celestial bodies, living by moonlight rituals. Some believe entire communities adapted their schedules to stars, working by night and sleeping by day. But this place, it's something else. A whole city banished from the sun. The shard presses against the merchant's ribs like an impatient child. He wanders deeper, drawn to a square where a fountain trickles under the watch of bronze griffins. There, he notices a plaque, its inscription eroded except for one word, Lael, which simply means night. He asks another passerby about it. The man frowns, says nothing, and shuffles off faster. That's when you realise no one here looks directly at him, or rather, they don't look at the cloak where the shard rests. He turns a corner into a dim bazaar. The smell of roasted lamb and spiced chickpeas curls in the air. You almost want to sit and eat. But something in the silence feels wrong. Traders speak in whispers, barely lifting their eyes. An old woman selling pomegranates finally croaks out a warning. Don't let it see you too long. She doesn't say what. But her hand trembles as she passes him a fruit with seeds red as coals. You're beginning to understand. The shard isn't just an object, it's a beacon. And this city, cut off from the sun, has been shaped by its pull. The merchant thinks he found it by chance, but no, the mirror fragment wanted him. You feel that truth in your own chest, like someone watching you through the reflection on your phone screen at night. Scheherazade pauses just long enough to let King Shahryar shift on his cushion. You imagine his hand tightening against his beard, unwilling to admit the story is gnawing at him. She resumes, her voice soft and steady, threading the night tighter. The merchant wanders, every street winding him deeper into shadows that never break. Somewhere ahead waits a figure he hasn't yet noticed, watching him through reflections only they can see. And you? You realize you're not just following anymore, you're being followed too. The merchant stops at a dry fountain, catching his breath. His sandals are raw at the straps, his throat dry as old parchment, yet the shard feels colder than ice against his ribs. You can almost hear the heartbeat of it, faint and steady, like a second pulse not his own. He pulls it out, holding it close to the fountain's cracked basin. The surface looks black at first, like obsidian always does, but then a ripple crosses it, like breath-misting glass. And that's when the whisper begins. It is not sound in the ordinary sense. You don't hear it with your ears, but with the back of your skull. A voice slides into him, into you, curling like smoke through thoughts. It is deep and velvety, half amused, half hungry. At last, it sighs. Someone to listen. The merchant jerks, nearly drops the shard, but doesn't. His eyes dart around the fountain square. Nobody else has noticed. The lanterns sway in wind that isn't there. You stand beside him, chilled, even though you're only a passenger in this story. The voice teases, asking questions. Not in words, but impressions. Where are you from? What do you want? What would you give to see the sun again? The merchant swallows hard. He whispers back, as though replying will shatter him. Who are you? The mirror stirs, and for an instant, the surface is no longer opaque but reflective. Yet the reflection is wrong. It shows the square empty. No fountain, no lanterns, just barren sand under a sky without stars. Standing in that false reflection is a tall figure, blurred, smoke-wrapped, with eyes like burning coals. Yes, you've guessed it, a djinn. Scheherazade's voice lilts here, playing with the rhythm, reminding her king, and you, that djinn in stories are never quite what they seem. Sometimes benevolent, sometimes monstrous, sometimes just cosmic tricksters with too much time on their hands. Historians still argue whether tales of djinn were purely myth or echoes of older Persian spirits like the Deva, rewritten into Islamic folklore. Either way, the djinn in this shard is not offering 3 wishes like some Disney intern. This one offers something stranger, attention. The merchant's lips tremble as he asks, "What do you want from me?" The djinn's answer is silence first, then a laugh low enough to shake the water in the fountain. Want? No, I have enough of want. I have only patience. But I see you, little wanderer. I see what you hide from even yourself. And then, in the reflection, the djinn holds up its own mirror. Yes, a mirror inside the mirror, recursion like a bad set of Russian dolls. Inside that second mirror, you glimpse something uncanny. The merchant himself, years older, his hair white, his cloak moth-eaten, still clutching the shard as if it owned him. You shift uncomfortably, maybe even glance at whatever reflective surface is near you in real life. Don't worry if something winks back, just tell yourself it's a glitch in the matrix. That always helps, right? The merchant gasps, shoving the shard back into his cloak, but it's too late. The voice stays, whispering whenever he blinks. The Djinn tells him secrets about the city, streets built to align with constellations, tunnels running under the palace, a vizier who hoards lamps filled with impossible flame. It drips knowledge like honey, but each word makes him thirstier. And here's the fun part. The whisper isn't only in his head anymore. You hear it too, threading through Scheherazada's narration, low and steady. You are listening. You are already mine. You wonder if King Shahryar notices. Maybe he shifts, rubbing his temples, uneasy. Maybe Scheherazade knows exactly how far to push the illusion, her eyes flicking to him beneath her lashes. That's the trick. Keep him awake, keep him hooked, keep herself alive until morning. The merchant stumbles on, the voice guiding him like an invisible leash. It tells him of a palace in this city, a place where the night is stored in jars. It promises riches beyond trade, promises a crown of eternal wakefulness, promises that if he carries the shard long enough, he too will command shadows. You and I both know this is bait. But then again, aren't you a little curious? Quirky tidbit time. Did you know some medieval Islamic alchemists actually believed polished metals could absorb and store astral light from the stars? The idea was that certain substances, like silver, could trap celestial energy. Imagine explaining that to your physics teacher. Sorry, I didn't do the homework. I was busy charging my dagger with moonbeams. Not exactly peer-reviewed, but enchanting all the same. The merchant's hands shake. He mutters, I didn't ask for this. The Djinn chuckles, the sound like sand grinding underfoot. No one ever does. That is why you are chosen. The shard burns cold against his skin. He tries to drop it, but his fingers won't obey. Already, the contract is signed, though no ink marks the page. Scheherazade lets the scene fade, leaving you perched on the edge of silence, knowing the merchant has taken his first step into a labyrinth without doors. And you? You feel the echo of the whisper brushing against your thoughts, as though the Djinn isn't quite satisfied with just one listener. The city wraps around you like a cloak too tight at the shoulders, pressing in from all sides with streets that refuse to end where they should. The merchant wanders deeper, guided less by choice than by the shard's quiet hum. You walk with him, lantern glow slicking the stones, wondering why every alley feels the same. The trick of it, Scheherazade murmurs, is that this is no ordinary city. It is a place cursed, or perhaps blessed, with endless night. Lanterns hang from every arch, fueled by oils that never sputter out. They sway gently, their flames refusing to shrink, as if mocking the absence of the sun. You peer into a workshop, a man hammering bronze, sparks glinting like fireflies. Yet he works in silence, and when you glance again, you notice something stranger. His shadow doesn't match him. It strikes the anvil half a beat too late, as though it's acting from memory. The merchant pauses at a stall selling saffron and cumin. He reaches for a pouch, then freezes. The vendor's eyes are pale, clouded, though the man moves with practiced precision. He doesn't haggle, doesn't even notice the coin pressed into his palm. You whisper to yourself, are these people alive, or just echoes walking through motions of commerce? Scheherazade, careful in her tone, offers a historical aside. Some say, she says, that Baghdad once hosted a sect of night worshippers who believed daylight burned the soul. Historians still argue whether these accounts were exaggerated slanders or fragments of truth. Either way, this city feels like the nightmare version of that sect, an entire society woven from darkness, existing not despite it, but because of it. The merchant presses on, clutching his cloak tighter. The shard's whisper thickens, humming now with each step. Do you see? The Djinn croons. They are what happens when the sun abandons the faithful. They do not live, they wait. You feel a shiver, as if the whisper isn't confined to him anymore. Maybe it echoes faintly in your chest too, like tinnitus of the soul. Nice bedtime thought, huh? Sweet dreams. He turns into a square, wide and dim, where a fountain should bubble. Instead, he finds a circle of black water, perfectly still, reflecting lantern flames that don't flicker. Children play nearby, but they don't laugh. They chase each other in silence, feet tapping the stones in eerie rhythm, like a rehearsal you were never invited to. The merchant sits by the fountain, staring at his warped reflection. For a breath, he sees himself not alone but surrounded by figures, men and women with hollow sockets where eyes should be, staring at him with mouths stitched shut. He blinks, and they vanish, leaving only his face, drawn and pale. He mutters, "This place, it's wrong." Of course, he's not wrong. You sense it too. A city without dawn can't grow. You think about real cities in history that tried bending time. Ancient Egyptians once celebrated festivals all night long, lighting massive bonfires to keep away the dark. Romans used mirrors and polished bronze discs to direct light into their houses, and yet none dared abandon the sun altogether. The city of endless night feels like the tragic experiment of some forgotten ruler who thought he could outwit the cosmos. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. A bell tolls in the distance as not a bright brassy bell, but a low gong that rattles through your ribs. People stop what they're doing, stall-keepers freeze mid-sail. Children halt mid-run. All heads turn toward the palace that crowns the city's heart. Its spires vanish into shadow, windows glowing faintly like watchful eyes. The gong fades, and life resumes, but slower, wearier, like a clock winding down. The merchant whispers, "Who rules here?" The shard purrs, one who listens as I do, one who waits as I have waited. The vizier keeps my vault, the sultan sleeps beneath my sky. You exchange a nervous glance with the merchant, though of course he doesn't see you. Vault, sultan, and what's with this city pretending it can function without sunlight, like some vampire's idea of urban planning? As he rises, a beggar tugs his sleeve. The man's beard is patchy, his hands trembling as he points to the cloak. "Keep it hidden," he hisses. "Not even the vizier should know." His voice cracks, then falls silent as he scurries into an alley. You don't need Scheherazada's warning tone to know this. The shard has a reputation here. People fear it. Perhaps they've seen what happens to those who carry it too long. You imagine previous merchants, pilgrims, wanderers, faces that flickered once in these same fountains, swallowed by the same mirror dark. The merchant tightens his grip on the shard, steps into the crowd, and you feel it too. That sense that every pair of pale eyes is watching, even when they pretend not to. The city breathes with him now, a living labyrinth. Lanterns burn, shadows delay, whispers trail through the air like smoke, and the palace looms ahead, promising both answers and ruin. The merchant's sandals scuff against stones as he approaches the palace gates, and you drift alongside him, taking in towers that loom too tall for their foundations. The spires stretch like claws into the starless sky, their windows glowing faintly, each one an unblinking eye. Guards stand motionless by the entrance, but you quickly realize they aren't ordinary men. Their armor gleams, polished to perfection, yet their faces are obscured by masks hammered from silver, expressionless and hollow. You wonder if they're even breathing. The merchant pauses, weighing whether to slip past or turn back. The shard makes the choice for him, buzzing faintly against his ribs. He presses a palm to it, muttering under his breath, "Fine, I'll see." Inside, the palace doesn't feel like a place of luxury. No lush carpets, no fountains spilling over with rosewater. Instead, Vast corridors echo with silence. The walls hung not with tapestries but with mirrors, tall and narrow, each one warped slightly. You glance into one and catch yourself looking back, except your reflection is half a beat slower. It smiles before you do. Great. Nothing terrifying about that. Scheherazada's voice, steady as ever, notes a historical echo. Palaces of the Abbasid caliphs once housed entire chambers lined with mirrors, to dazzle guests and multiply the impression of endless wealth. Historians still argue whether these rooms were feats of artistry or tools of intimidation. Either way, in this palace, the mirrors are less about impressing guests and more about unsettling intruders. The merchant treads carefully. His footsteps click too loud in the stillness. A pair of attendants drift by, carrying trays of fruit, though their eyes are glazed and their movements mechanical. He flattens against a column, holding his breath until they vanish down a corridor. You get the impression the palace is populated not by courtiers but by shadows acting out remembered routines. And then, you hear it. A voice slithers across the marble. You've come far for one who does not belong. The vizier steps into view. He's tall, his robes dark, embroidered with silver thread that catches lantern light like spider silk. His beard is oiled, his eyes sharp as knives. Yet his hands tremble faintly as he folds them behind his back, as though he's both host and prisoner. The merchant stammers, I seek trade. I found this. He stops himself too late, fingers brushing the shard in his cloak. The vizier's gaze sharpens. He smiles thinly, the kind of smile that hides knives. Ah, so the mirror has chosen another. The shard thrums, a pulse in time with your own heartbeat. The djinn's whisper coils in the merchant's skull. Do not trust him. He hoards what he cannot wield. The vizier circles him slowly, his robes whispering across stone. That fragment, he says softly, is not yours. It belongs to the vault. To me. You can almost hear King Shahryar leaning forward now in Scheherazada's chamber, caught between suspicion and fascination. And Scheherazade. She lowers her voice a notch, so that every word feels like a secret pulled just for you. The vizier gestures, and two masked guards step closer. Their armour glints, though you notice their shadows move independently, lagging slightly behind. The merchant swallows, sweat on his brow. He clutches the shard tighter. You don't understand what you hold. The vizier murmurs, It is a doorway, but doors swing both ways. Do you truly wish to be the djinn's key? The shard pulses again, this time hot. The djinn chuckles in the merchant's skull. He fears me. That is why he guards me. Ask him what lies beneath this palace. Ask him what he keeps locked away while his city rots in false night. The merchant blurts, What's in the vault? The vizier freezes. For the first time, his mask of calm fractures. His pupils widen, and he glances toward a staircase curling downward into darkness. When he speaks again, his voice is softer, strained. Some knowledge is heavier than gold. Some treasures are prisons, not gifts. Historians still argue whether viziers in Islamic courts were loyal servants or ambitious schemers who pulled strings behind fragile thrones. In this story, the vizier is both, keeper of secrets, yet prisoner to them. The merchant steps back. The guards inch forward. For a moment, you think this is the end, caught before he even understands what game he's playing. But then the shard pulses one more time, and the lamps above flicker violently. The guards freeze, their silver masks turning toward the ceiling as if listening to orders from the shadows. The vizier snarls and waves them back. You will leave now, he hisses. Take your fragment and go before you learn too much. But you and the merchant both know the warning is useless. Once you've glimpsed a secret door, you can't forget it exists. And now, beneath this palace, a vault waits, guarded by silence, cursed by night, whispering for someone reckless enough to open it. The merchant flees the palace, his cloak flaring like a wing behind him, your footsteps echoing with his as if you too are being hunted. The Vizier's words cling to his ears, thick as smoke. Some treasures are prisons, not gifts. But it's too late. The shard has already burned a groove into his thoughts. Even if he wanted to forget, the Djinn would not let him. Outside, the city is restless. Lanterns sway, though the night air is still. The market square has thinned, the silent children gone. The beggars vanished as if swallowed whole. Only the whisper of wind remains, curling between stone arches. Then, hooves. A caravan clatters into the city gate, a band of riders cloaked in silver-dyed cloth, their camels laden with sacks that clink faintly. They ride not like traders, but like predators, slipping through alleys with moonlight glinting on curved blades. Their eyes flash above scarves, pupils wide, teeth grinning too white in the shadows. You realize quickly, these are not ordinary merchants. They're moonlight thieves, bandits who strike only under starlight, never daylight, which is convenient, considering this city hasn't seen the sun in years. They thrive here. The leader dismounts, a woman with braids streaked white as frost, her scimitar hanging low at her hip. She speaks to the merchant as though she's been expecting him. You carry something cursed, stranger, but cursed things pay well. The Djinn's whisper coils around the words. Do not trust her. She steals not gold, but memory. Scheherazade draws out the moment, letting Shahryar lean closer in his cushioned chamber. Her tone slips into a teasing cadence. Even in history, thieves thrived on the edges of empires. Bedouin raiders once plundered caravans, striking fast in deserts where no soldier could chase. Historians still argue whether they were villains or simply survivors of harsh sands. In this tale, though, the thieves aren't just raiders, they are keepers of forbidden trade. The merchant swallows. What is it you want? The woman smiles, sharp as a blade. We want the path you walk, the shard whispers. Does it not? Show us the way to its vault, and you may keep your life. Your chest tightens, because you know what comes next. The Djinn chuckles, a sound like cracking glass. They think they can lead me. Fools. I lead them. The thieves surround him, ushering him into the desert beyond the gates. Their camels plod silently, bells muted by strips of cloth. The moon itself seems brighter out here, though you're sure it shouldn't be. The city is supposed to live in endless night, but as dunes stretch before you, their surfaces ripple with pale light, as if the sand remembers moonlight even when the sky denies it. The merchant clutches the shard tighter. His voice trembles as he asks, "What are you really after?" The leader glances over her shoulder, braids swinging. We're after what all thieves chase, what others fear to touch. She tilts her head, eyes gleaming. The vizier cannot keep his secrets forever. The night always betrays its keepers. A quirky aside slips into your mind, courtesy of Scheherazade's sly tone. Did you know in medieval Persia there were actual moonlight towers? Structures designed to capture and reflect the glow of the moon, used in rituals and storytelling gatherings. Imagine stealing moonlight like silver dust, stuffing it in sacks like flour. You half expect these thieves to do exactly that. The caravan presses on, cutting through the desert. You notice their footprints don't linger. Each step fades as soon as it's made, as though the sand refuses to remember them. The Djinn whispers again. They are shadows of thieves long dead. Their camels are husks. Their sacks are empty. Only you are real, little wanderer. You glance at the sacks, half expecting them to rattle open. But the merchant doesn't question it, perhaps because he fears the answer. Night deepens, or maybe it doesn't. Time in this desert feels unmoored, hours bleeding into one another. The thieves begin to sing softly, a chant in a language you don't recognize. The rhythm is steady, hypnotic, like waves against a shore. The merchant sways, nearly dozing, until the shard burns against his chest. He jerks awake. realizing the song isn't for him. It's for the Djinn. The leader rides closer, voice dropping low. The vizier thinks he holds the vault, but it is the shard that chooses when to open, and you're its chosen bearer. You feel the merchant's panic, sharp and bitter. Chosen? No one asked him. He wanted trade, not cosmic babysitting for imprisoned Djinn. And yet, here he is, surrounded by thieves who treat him less as prey and more as a key. The dunes stretch farther, and at their crest, you glimpse something strange. Stones rise in a circle, tall and jagged, black against black. The thieves halt, tying their camels, their lanterns dimmed. The leader gestures with her scimitar. Here begins the path to the vault. The shard pulses like a heartbeat, and the whisper curls into your skull. Now the game begins. You walk deeper into the cool stone passages, each step a hollow echo swallowed by the winding labyrinth. The torches flicker nervously, their flames snapping like gossiping tongues, hinting that you really shouldn't be here. The scent of wax and old dust presses in, and the silence between your breaths is so thick you feel it might spill over and break into voices. Behind you, the library vanishes into darkness, as though you've crossed an invisible threshold where books stop mattering and shadows start taking attendance. This tunnel is not some casual medieval hallway built for servants carrying trays of dates and figs. No, this is older, carved before kings with tall hats decided how history should be written. You can almost feel the chisel marks under your fingertips. Gouges made by desperate hands that wanted this place hidden, kept from prying eyes. Historians still argue whether certain underground chambers in Baghdad and Cairo were meant for storage, burial, or secret ritual, and you find yourself leaning toward option 3, given how the air tastes slightly metallic, like blood left too long in a copper bowl. Comforting, right? At a bend, the wall opens into a chamber. It's circular, domed, and acoustically perfect. Every shuffle of your boot ricochets back at you with surgical precision. Medieval architects loved playing with sound, sometimes designing mosques where the imam's whisper would carry effortlessly to the last row. Here, though, the acoustics feel weaponized, each echo layering into a choir of ghostly doubles that make you wonder if you're walking alone. You probably aren't. A pedestal stands in the chamber's centre, cracked and half swallowed by time. Resting on it, wrapped in rotting cloth, is a shard of obsidian glass, black as spilled ink, smooth yet jagged. The shard reflects almost nothing, as if light itself refuses to play along. Your hand hovers above it, and though you tell yourself you're just inspecting, your skin tingles with the unmistakable sensation of static pulling you closer. Remember those science fair tricks with balloons sticking to your hair? Same thing, except instead of middle school embarrassment, you might be about to attract an ancient being with questionable boundaries. You give a nervous laugh. Sure, it's fine. What's the worst that can happen? Famous last words. The shard seems to pulse once, like a heart skipping in sync with yours. Some scholars believe obsidian mirrors were used in ancient Mesopotamian rituals as gateways to consult spirits. Others argue they were simply vanity tools for admiring your eyeliner game. The truth? Well, historians still argue whether those mirrors were ever considered safe objects, or whether every single one came with a side of curses. You lift it carefully and the weight surprises you. Heavy, denser than rock should be. Its surface isn't flat but seems to tilt, like water trembling at the edge of boiling. When you stare into it, you don't see your own reflection. You see something darker, a hallway behind you that doesn't exist, torches flaring too bright, and the faint outline of a tall figure standing where no one is standing. Oh, good. Haunted glass. Exactly what you wanted to bring home. Your grip tightens, the edges biting into your palm. Strangely, the pain doesn't break your gaze. Instead, the shard demands more. You feel pulled, leaning closer, nose almost brushing the impossible surface. A whisper rides the air, low and scratchy, syllables not belonging to any language you know. Yet your brain, rebellious as ever, insists on translating. I see you. The chamber's air drops 10 degrees in an instant, your breath spilling white mist. Ancient tunnels often create drafts. Sure, but this isn't drafty. This is targeted. It's like a blast freezer aimed just at you, chilling your bones. You want to drop the shard, but the idea of letting it shatter seems worse. Like breaking a mirror and multiplying your bad luck by 7 centuries. The whisper grows clearer, unfurling syllables that slither around your ears. You catch fragments, night without end. Mirror. Return. Return what? You didn't even borrow it yet. But the shard disagrees. It recognizes you. Or at least recognizes something buried in your bloodline. Maybe that's why the scholar's diary mentioned your family name scratched faintly into its margins. Maybe this was never random. Your pulse hammers as you edge back toward the corridor, mirror clutched against your chest. The echoes chase you, no longer neutral but mocking, imitating your footsteps with a half-beat delay. You swear one echo says your name, just once, just enough to make your knees buckle. You push into the passage again, torchlight bobbing wildly, the stone walls pressing closer. Every rational nerve screams to toss the shard into the nearest crevice, but curiosity, your worst personality trait, wins out. People once believed carrying talismans carved of obsidian could protect them from evil, or maybe that was the marketing pitch before handing out cursed mirrors. Either way, congratulations. You're now the owner of something that refuses to behave like a rock. When you reach the stairway upward, you feel lighter, though not because the shard is any less heavy. It's because something behind you has stopped following, which is worse. Honestly, if it had kept chasing, you'd at least know where it was. But silence? Silence means it's ahead of you now, waiting. You pause, torch guttering. The shard in your hand flickers again, showing a reflection of the stairwell but not the one you're climbing. In its reflection, the steps spiral downward endlessly, and a tall figure lingers at the bottom, watching, patient as eternity. And yet you keep climbing. You stand at the edge of the city's northern gate, where caravans of spice merchants rumble in under the steady clop of camel hooves. The market road stretches like a scar through the desert's skin, a vein through which gold, silk, and gossip all flow together. You join the stream of traders and wanderers, the kind of crowd that always carries secrets tucked in saddlebags and whispered in broken tongues. Somewhere in this crush of humanity lies the rumour you've been following, that a mirror of impossible darkness is changing hands, sold as a bauble yet feared as a curse. The air stinks of roasted lamb and sweat, and every merchant seems to shout louder than the last. A man sells dates so sticky they glue your fingers. Another offers perfume thick with frankincense that makes your eyes water. Historical detail slips into your ear. Medieval bazaars like this really were the lifeblood of empires, where tax collectors took their cut, and scholars scribbled down fragments of foreign languages just to keep pace with trade. You imagine that. If you plucked a thread from any tent here, you might unravel the map of the known world. And then comes the rumour. It drifts from a toothless rug vendor, muttered like gossip that doesn't want to be owned. He says a man wrapped in emerald cloth was seen holding a black mirror that seemed to drink the torchlight around it. Some swore it was glass. Others claimed it was obsidian from a mountain no caravan ever charted. Historians still argue whether medieval accounts of such scrying mirrors refer to literal artifacts or metaphorical descriptions of foreign technologies. Either way, it doesn't matter to you, because your pulse spikes the moment you hear it. The rug vendor scratches his beard and adds, almost as an afterthought, that the emerald man vanished after sundown. Some say he sold the mirror, some say he was swallowed whole by his own reflection. Quirky fact. In more than one medieval chronicle, Merchants accused their competitors of sorcery when trade suddenly collapsed, sometimes blaming mirrors, sometimes blaming Djinn in the smoke of their incense. You weave through stalls, asking questions that earn you suspicious glances. A woman selling copper pots taps her ladle against a rim and mutters that anyone chasing after cursed glass must be desperate, or doomed. A pair of children giggle as they repeat the rhyme. Don't look at the mirror, don't look at the night, or you'll never see morning, not even by light. You realise that every repetition makes the mirror less myth and more map, pointing you towards something too heavy to ignore. The sun dips low, gilding the domes of the mosque with light so bright you almost forget the darkness waiting. The call to prayer spills over the rooftops, layered with echoes, and for a moment you just stand still, a stranger in a city that feels both alive and haunted. You probably won't survive chasing this mirror, but you also can't walk away, not when the air hums like the whole city is trying not to breathe. As the crowd thins into evening shadows, a merchant slips a folded scrap of parchment into your palm. No words, only a sketch of a mirror framed in curling symbols you half recognise as the language of Djinn. He doesn't wait for thanks. He simply disappears into the dark like he was never there. You stare at the drawing until your eyes blur, until it feels like the mirror on the page might swallow you whole. The bazaar bells toll once, long and low, marking the closing of stalls, and you realise the rumour isn't just smoke. The mirror is here, somewhere in this city, and if you follow the trail, you'll have to decide whether to see your reflection in its endless night. Night descends on the city like a veil drawn across a bride's face, slow, deliberate, concealing more than it reveals. You walk the narrow streets after the market has closed, where shuttered stalls lean into one another like old men gossiping in hushed tones. The stone beneath your feet holds the day's heat, and the air carries a weight that makes even your breath feel watched. Somewhere in these twisting alleys lies the path to the mirror, though the city does not give up its secrets easily. You pass by a scribe's shop, its lantern still burning though the door is barred. Through the slit of a window, you glimpse a man hunched over parchment, his quill scratching furiously. Medieval scribes often worked by candlelight, risking blindness, their manuscripts crawling with annotations like tiny prayers in ink. You wonder if this one is recording trade accounts, or warning future generations about cursed objects traded under the cover of the night. The alley splits, and you follow the faintest of clues, a scrap of emerald cloth snagged on a nail, fluttering like a trapped bird. Your heart stutters. The cloth is too fine to belong to any common merchant. You take it, fold it into your palm, and feel its fibres cool and slick, as though the desert itself recoils from its touch. At a bend in the alley, a door opens suddenly, a figure steps out, carrying a clay jug of water, and you freeze. The woman squints at you, then at the scrap of emerald in your hand. She shakes her head slowly, muttering in a dialect you barely catch. Don't chase shadows. They always run faster than you. A curious warning, one that echoes the fatalistic sayings sprinkled throughout medieval chronicles, where chance encounters often doubled as omens. Still, you press forward. The city grows quieter, as if every household has agreed to hold its breath. A cat darts across the street, its yellow eyes catching torchlight for an instant before vanishing into the dark. Cats, in medieval folklore, were often thought to walk between worlds, their sudden appearances woven into tales of witches and unseen spirits. You can't help but feel the animal is more guide than accident. At last, you find the house. It is marked by nothing more than silence, a single, low doorway where no lantern burns, no incense drifts. You approach cautiously, your steps muffled against worn stone. The door creaks open with the push of your hand, revealing a chamber that smells of salt, old wood, and something sharper, like iron. Inside, the walls are lined with shelves cluttered by relics, brass astrolabes, ivory boxes, rolls of parchment bound in leather. The room is thick with dust, though every object feels deliberate, as if arranged for a ritual instead of storage. In the centre, resting on a table draped with black cloth, lies the mirror. It is smaller than you imagined, no larger than a platter, framed in silver so tarnished it looks green in the candlelight. But the glass, if it is glass, swallows all reflection. No flicker of flame, no outline of your hand hovering above it, only a dark so absolute it feels alive. Your throat tightens. This is no trinket. This is the kind of object that swallows history whole, leaving only rumours behind. You recall how John Dee, centuries later, would gaze into his own obsidian mirror, claiming to see angels and demons alike. How Aztec priests once polished volcanic stone into black mirrors to speak with their gods. Could this artifact be one of those stolen, traded, or cursed into wandering across continents? The silence presses in, thick and expectant. You reach out, fingertips trembling as they hover just above the mirror's surface, and though you haven't touched it, the air already ripples, bending like heat waves over a desert sand. For a heartbeat, you see something shift within that blackness, something that looks back. Your hand recoils. The candle flickers violently, throwing shadows like claws across the wall. You hear, faintly, a whisper that doesn't come from the room, a voice too low, too stretched, yet unmistakably aimed at you. Do you seek to see, or to be seen? And suddenly you understand the truth that all the bazaar's warnings were circling. The mirror is not an object to be owned. It is a door, and every door opens both ways. The air in the chamber grows heavy, as though the walls themselves are listening. You step back from the table, but the mirror clings to your vision like an after-image burned into the eye. Its darkness seems to swell, refusing to be ignored. You steady your breath. Recalling tales whispered in medieval chronicles, about monks who claimed to glimpse the devil in reflections, about nobles who insisted their ancestors spoke to them through polished silver. Such stories were dismissed as superstition by some, yet here, with the weight of the mirror before you, they feel like warnings rather than myths. You crouch to study the object more closely, resisting the urge to touch it again. The silver frame bears carvings too faint to notice at first, looping, angular lines that resemble no script you recognize. You trace their shape in the air with your finger, trying to commit them to memory. The markings recall the magical alphabet scribes once tucked into grimoires, where letters weren't merely symbols but vessels of power. Scholars today might call it an early cipher, or perhaps a forgotten tongue. But in this moment, you feel certain it is something older, carved by a hand that believed language could bind the unseen. The candle sputters, its wax bleeding down in rivulets like time made visible. Shadows bend unnaturally across the relics lining the shelves, as though drawn toward the mirror's pull. You glance around, desperate for anchor points to the world of the living. A brass astrolabe gleams faintly. Beside it rests a glass vial containing dried herbs that smell faintly of myrrh. These are not random possessions. They form the trappings of ritual, suggesting that whoever guarded this room used the mirror not for vanity, but for practice, for summoning, bargaining, or spying upon what should not be seen. Then comes the sound, faint but sharp in the silence, a tapping, like fingernails against glass. You freeze, the hair rising along your arms. The sound comes not from the room, but from within the mirror itself. Once, twice, 3 times, a rhythm deliberate, as though someone or something is trying to establish contact. Your mind races with half-remembered accounts. In medieval folklore, mirrors were sometimes veiled during death, lest a soul linger and become trapped. Others claimed that gazing too long into darkened glass invited an echo spirit, a being that mimicked the living to lure them across. And here you stand, a witness to those stories bleeding into reality. Summoning what little courage you have, you whisper aloud. The words tremble though you try to steady them. Who knocks? The tapping ceases. For a heartbeat, the silence is so complete you wonder if you imagined it all. But then, slowly, the blackness ripples again. This time, instead of emptiness, you glimpse the faintest outline, a hand pressing from the inside, its fingers splayed against invisible glass. The image is vague, like smoke struggling to form shape, but unmistakably human. You stagger backward, nearly colliding with a stack of parchment. The hand lingers for a moment longer, then dissolves back into shadow. Yet the impression remains seared in your mind. You are not the only one watching. A thought blooms unbidden, sharp and insistent. What if the mirror is not simply showing you? What if it is inviting you? And then, like a cruel answer, you notice the room itself has shifted. The shelves, the relics, the walls, they remain, yet their angles no longer feel right, as if the architecture is being bent around you. The candlelight does not fall naturally, stretching too far, bending in ways that suggest another space hidden just beyond perception. The mirror pulses faintly, as though it has a heartbeat of its own. Your lips form a prayer you didn't realize you knew, words carried down through generations like fragile heirlooms. Yet even as you whisper them, you can't shake the dread that prayers in this room serve less as shields and more as signals, marking you as a presence worth noticing. The silence deepens again, but it is no longer empty. Something on the other side is waiting. The waiting becomes unbearable. You shift from foot to foot, trying to resist the weight of the mirror's silence. It is not the stillness of an object, but the kind of silence that listens, the kind that demands patience. Your breath fogs faintly in the air, though the room should not be this cold. You realize that time has begun to lose its rhythm here. The candle burns, yet the wax drips slower than it should, as if the hour has chosen not to pass. You look again at the shelves, desperate for context. A fragment of parchment lies unrolled beside the brass astrolabe, its ink faded but legible in parts. You bring the candle close enough to read, words in Latin interwoven with crude illustrations of circles and sigils. The script speaks of speculum tenebrarum, the mirror of shadows, an artifact said to bridge the visible and the hidden. The text warns of voices that come not as answers but as imitations, repeating words to gain your trust. A margin note, scrawled in a less careful hand, repeats a phrase, "Do not call twice." You glance at the mirror again, uneasy. The hand you saw earlier has vanished, but the surface still quivers faintly, like disturbed water, and though you have not spoken further, you begin to hear whispers. At first, they are no more than the hiss of wax meeting flame, but slowly they rise into words, fragmented and fragile. Your name emerges among them, not shouted, not demanded, simply spoken, as though from a mouth pressed against cold glass. Your instinct is to deny it. You tell yourself this cannot be real, that names have no power when uttered by shadows, but history disagrees. Medieval necromancers often guarded their names during rites, believing the utterance of identity could give spirits authority over flesh. The whispering persists, repeating syllables until they unravel into something uncanny. Your voice, speaking back at you. The air grows thicker, pressing against your chest. You stagger, reaching for the shelf to steady yourself. Your hand closes around a vial, glass cool and trembling. Inside, blackened herbs crumble to dust with the slightest pressure. They smell bitter, acrid, like something burned in haste. Perhaps they were once used in rituals to cloud the senses, to obscure a path. Now they are useless, reduced to fragments of a practice that failed. The whispers swell, overlapping, until the mirror is no longer a silent surface but a chorus of echoes. Each voice is yours, spoken at different pitches, as though the mirror has gathered every fragment of you that has ever existed and cast them back in distorted reflection. One voice is childlike, curious, another is aged and trembling, another carries anger sharp enough to wound. You realize the mirror is not showing you someone else. It is showing you the versions of yourself that could have been, or might still be. The candle flickers violently, a gust of cold air brushes past. Though the door remains shut, the shadows elongate, reaching across the floor like claws. You back away, but there is nowhere to go. The room feels smaller than it was, the shelves pressing inward, the ceiling lowering, the walls breathing faintly as though they're alive. Your heartbeat hammers. You try to reason with yourself, to reduce this to science. Perhaps it is pareidolia, the brain's compulsion to find patterns in chaos. Perhaps the whispers are your imagination, fed by centuries of myth. But your skin tells you otherwise. Every hair rises in warning. Every nerve insists you're not imagining this. The whispers halt suddenly. For a long moment, the silence is so complete that it feels like the world has stopped. Then, one voice remains, clear, singular. It speaks in a tone that is not yours, though it wears the shape of your words. It says, "Come closer." The mirror glows faintly now, no longer black but silvered, as though polished from within. The surface shows not your reflection, but the faint outline of a corridor stretching into impossible distance. The corridor is narrow, lined with stone, lit by torches that do not flicker. You know this place does not exist within the house, nor in any world you should enter, yet the sight grips you, promising answers if you only step forward. Your body leans before your mind consents, drawn toward the surface. The room tilts, your balance wavers, and you find yourself reaching out. The cold glass meets your palm once more. But this time, it does not resist. Your hand passes through. The sensation is immediate and unnatural, neither liquid nor solid, neither warm nor cold. Your skin slides through the surface of the mirror as though it were mist condensed into glass. For a moment, panic rises, a primal fear that you will be trapped halfway, imprisoned between two worlds like a fly in amber. But your body yields entirely, drawn forward, until the familiar study dissolves behind you. You stand in the corridor you glimpsed, its walls rough-hewn stone, damp with condensation. The air is heavy, smelling of iron and smoke, and the sound of dripping water echoes endlessly. Torches are set into sconces along the walls, but their flames do not dance. They burn rigid, as though imprisoned by some invisible order. Their light is cold, a pale imitation of fire, casting shadows that do not move even when you do. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, cobbled but worn smooth, as though countless steps have passed before you. Yet the dust is thick, undisturbed, suggesting no one has walked here for centuries. The paradox unsettles you. You wonder if this corridor is an imitation of a place that once existed, a reconstruction woven from memory or desire rather than stone. Behind you, the mirror stands, its surface still glowing faintly. You approach, testing whether it will allow passage back, but where your hand once entered freely, now the glass is hardened. You see your reflection again, not in real time, but delayed, as though every movement takes a moment too long to follow. The reflection's eyes linger on you with a sharpness that is not your own, then blink once, slow and deliberate. You step away, refusing to look further. The corridor stretches on without curve or end. You begin walking, footsteps echoing unnaturally, louder than they should be. The sound does not fade behind you but accumulates, layer upon layer, until it seems as though a multitude follows. When you glance back, the passage is empty. Only your own prints mar the dust. As you walk, you notice carvings etched into the stone walls. Some are symbols familiar from grimoires, pentacles, circles intersecting with triangles, letters of ancient alphabets. Others are grotesque, crude faces twisted in perpetual scream, mouths open wide as if calling for release. Their eyes seem to follow your progress. You reach out to touch one, curious, and the stone is wet, not with condensation, but with something thicker. Your fingers recoil instinctively. Further along you find a niche in the wall. Inside sits a wooden lectern, impossibly preserved, bearing an open book. The pages are brittle, their ink dark as if written yesterday. The script is not in any language you fully recognize, yet some words emerge in clarity. Ingressus, egressus, speculum, entry, exit, mirror. Another line repeats across the page like an incantation. The mirror is the mouth. Do not feed it your breath. You shut the book. Pulse quickening. Breath. Was that why it whispered your name? Was that how it imitated you? You force yourself to breathe shallowly now, unwilling to give anything more than you must. A sound interrupts your thoughts, not the drip of water, not the echo of steps, but a knock, dull, hollow, 3 times from somewhere ahead. You freeze, listening. Silence follows. Then, again, 3 knocks, but closer. The torchlight seems to dim, though the flames remain steady. You continue forward, slowly, each step weighed by dread. The corridor narrows until your shoulders nearly brush the walls. The air grows colder, biting into your skin, and then you see it. A door. It is iron-bound, heavy, its wood blackened with age. No handle is visible, only a large keyhole that breathes faint wisps of fog into the corridor. The knocking has stopped, but the door hums faintly, as though something beyond it waits with patience older than speech. You kneel, pressing your ear to the keyhole. At first, nothing, only silence. Then, faintly, a voice, not whispering now, but chanting. The words roll together like waves, too deep to decipher, but rhythmically precise. Each phrase seems to press against your skull, vibrating inside your bones. You stagger back, gripping your head. The chanting halts abruptly. A single phrase follows, perfectly clear, spoken in your own voice. You should not have come here. Your heart stutters. The door rattles violently, chains clattering behind it, wood groaning as though under enormous strain. Dust falls from the ceiling. You retreat several steps, torchlight shivering though the flames remain frozen. And then, with a sound like a sigh, the door swings open. Darkness yawns beyond. The door opens not with a creak, but with a silence so absolute that it consumes even your breath. The corridor's echoes vanish. The frozen flames of the torches behind you dim, as though bowing to the greater shadow now revealed. For a moment, you hesitate, your body screaming to flee, but the air itself tugs at you, pulling strands of hair and fabric toward the threshold. It feels less like an invitation than an inevitability. You cross. Inside, there is no floor, no ceiling, no walls. You step onto something that is not stone, yet supports you, smooth, reflective, stretching into infinity. It is not water, yet ripples radiate with each step, above and below, identical, the same mirrored expanse, endless, horizonless, indistinguishable. You cannot tell whether you stand upon it or within it. Your reflection appears, first at your feet, then beside you, then circling, multiplied 1,000-fold. Each is you, yet not. Some copies stand upright, mirroring your posture exactly. Others are distorted, their faces slack with exhaustion or twisted in silent screams. One holds its hand to its chest as though trying to claw out its own heart. Another bleeds steadily from the eyes, the liquid dripping upward, defying gravity. only to dissolve into the air like smoke. You turn, trying to escape, but every direction is the same. The mirror surface stretches on, impossible and eternal. The only feature that breaks the void is a single column rising in the distance, black and seamless, so tall it pierces the sky and the ground at once. Its surface absorbs light, swallowing your gaze like a wound in the world. Instinct drives you toward it, though every nerve in your body insists that approach means surrender. As you walk, the reflections grow bolder. They no longer wait passively. They twitch before you do, smirking in triumph when your body follows. Their movements are not mirrors, but predictions. One raises its hand, and before you realize it, you are raising yours, compelled by some unseen tether. You fight it, shaking violently, and for a brief second, the reflection falters, its grin widening as though amused by your resistance. The whisper returns, this time not outside but inside, woven into the rhythm of your own thoughts. You are not singular. You are not sovereign. You're rehearsed, repeated, rehearsed again. Your chest tightens. The phrase from the book gnaws at you. The mirror is the mouth. Do not feed it your breath. Yet here you are, exhaling, inhaling, surrounded by mouths, your mouths, all eager, all hungry. You try to control your breathing, shallow, ragged, but your reflections mimic you perfectly now, a chorus of lungs rising and falling in unison. Each breath you give them is multiplied, stolen, owned. The more you resist, the heavier your body feels, as though gravity itself is tightening its grip. When at last you reach the column, you see that it is not stone, nor metal, but a surface of pure black mirror. Unlike the floor, it gives no reflection at all. It is void, featureless, swallowing the world around it, and carved into its base is a single indentation, a handprint, perfectly matching your own. Your palm burns before you even touch it, as if the shape calls to the heat of your skin. You fight the compulsion, pulling back, yet your hand trembles forward, finger by finger aligning with the grooves. The instant your palm makes contact, the surface ripples outward like liquid ink. Your reflections vanish, all of them, gone in an instant, leaving only you, alone, unbearably alone, in an emptiness that stretches without end. But then another hand presses against the opposite side of the print. Not yours. It is too pale, too elongated, fingers jointed strangely, as though assembled from an imitation of memory rather than flesh. Its pressure meets yours exactly, palm to palm, separated only by the impossibly thin veil of mirror. And when it speaks, it does not whisper, it does not chant. It breathes. Your own breath exhaled back into you. Welcome home. The black mirror bursts like glass. Shards scatter without sound, drifting through the void like falling snow. Each shard holds a fragment of your face, your hand, your life, spinning away into infinite distance. You try to scream, but your voice has already been claimed. And then you fall, through reflection after reflection, each one catching you briefly before shattering beneath your weight, faster, deeper, endlessly, until the sensation of falling itself dissolves into stillness. You wake, your eyes open to the dim light of your study, the old mirror standing in its familiar place, surface smooth and ordinary once more. The book is still on the table, though its pages are blank. The clock ticks gently. A fire crackles in the hearth. All is as it was, and yet, on the glass of the mirror faintly, fog has gathered. 4 words are traced in it by an unseen hand. Do not look again. The air around you thickens, as though the desert itself is holding its breath. The black glass tower trembles, its surface rippling like oil on water. You step closer, half expecting the mirror to shatter or to suck you in one last time, but instead it hums with a resonance that crawls up your bones, The trapped Djinn howls from somewhere beyond, not so much a scream of rage anymore as a note of despair. It echoes inside your chest, and you feel that tug, the temptation to look back, to open the prison, to free what was meant to remain chained forever. You resist, though barely. Each step away feels like lifting an anchor. Your eyes dart to the horizon, where the stars seem brighter, clearer, as if the night sky is finally washing itself clean. You know that you are walking away with more than you brought in. Not gold, not jewels, not power, though a tiny, mischievous part of you still wonders if you could have at least asked for one wish before sealing the mirror. Instead, you leave carrying stories, fragments of lore that are slippery and impossible to pin down. Historians still argue whether mirrors in Middle Eastern folklore symbolized gateways to truth or dangerous illusions. Clearly, you've just had a front-row seat to the dangerous illusion school of thought. As the tower shrinks behind you, you can't help but think about all those travellers before you, the ones who sought glory, who wanted proof, who never returned. You may not have come away rich, but hey, you're alive, and that's more than most can say. Besides, if you ever find yourself missing the endless night, just stare at your phone screen at 3 yes, and you'll get a pretty similar vibe. The desert winds calm, brushing sand against your legs, soft as a lullaby. The moonlight guides you back toward the ruins, past broken statues and half-buried roads, until the hum of the mirror fades entirely. It is sealed now, locked beyond reach. Perhaps for eternity. You tell yourself you'll never come back, though you know, deep down, that if the Djinn whispers again, curiosity will probably drag you close. After all, humans have always been terrible at resisting shiny, forbidden things. And then, slowly, you feel the weight lift. The desert night loosens its grip. Your shoulders relax, your breath evens out, and your heartbeat steadies. The journey is done. The mirror belongs to the darkness, not to you. You made it out. The sands settle, and the story begins to soften, as if time itself is slowing its pace, stretching moments like threads of silk. You breathe a little deeper, feeling how each inhale carries calm, and each exhale releases whatever tension still lingers. The desert sky above, once heavy with shadows and starlight, now turns into a wide, soothing canvas filled with quiet space. The mirror, the Djinn, the tower, those images drift further away, becoming distant, harmless echoes, dissolving like waves fading into shore. It is all behind you now, tucked safely into the folds of a tale that cannot touch you here. You are warm, you are safe, and you are gently grounded in the present, where the only sound you need to hear is the steady rhythm of your breath, or maybe that soft hum of a fan in the corner. Imagine the night wrapping around you like a blanket, cool and light, inviting you to rest. You let the tension melt away, as if your muscles finally remember that they do not need to hold the weight of towers or mirrors or endless nights. Instead, they sink, they loosen, they yield to the comfort beneath you. Thoughts that once crowded your mind now move slower, calmer, like lanterns floating down a still river. One by one, they drift into silence. So let your eyes close gently. Let your body settle into the rhythm of sleep. You have travelled far, and now the only journey left is inward, quiet and peaceful. The Djinn is gone, the night is kind, and you are free to rest. Sweet dreams.